Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is snatch. And this verb was requested by the viewer Bob Graves. So, Bob, thank you so much for this great idea. Now, let's begin to review some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. One way to use the verb snatch means to quickly seize something in a rude or eager way. So I know we've talked about the verb seize recently, but that could be new for some newer viewers. So that idea is you're taking something. Now, this isn't something you said, may I, right? And it's just kind of a grab it without permission. Maybe you haven't waited your turn. Might be another good way to think about that. A second way the verb snatch gets used means to steal something or kidnap someone by grabbing it or them suddenly. So sometimes as this verb is used, we're talking about a crime. We're talking about doing something illegal, taking something that is not yours, or taking a person that you do not have a right to take. A third way to use the verb snatch means to hastily attempt to seize or grab something. Now, for some people, you might be thinking, wait a second, aren't one and three sort of the same thing? And they are very close. What I might note here is the slight difference is the attempt. It might not be done successfully, so someone tries to grab, tries to take possession of something. A fourth way the verb snatch gets used means to quickly secure or obtain something when a chance presents itself. This fourth definition, I would say, has the most positive meaning of all of our definitions here. So, really means like someone is taking advantage of an opportunity. They're kind of grabbing that opportunity. For now, you should know that snatch is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing, and that forms snatching. The past tense and the participle forms of this verb can be made by adding ed. Now, our base verb, snatch, ends with an unvoiced ch sound. This means our ed ending is going to make a t sound. Okay? We're not going to add an extra syllable as we say it. So the past tense, the participle forms of the verb should sound like this. Snatched, snatched. Now, there are actually a number of phrasal verbs. You're going to see some similarity in definition, but I thought it would be good to focus on these different phrasal verbs, and I'll try and review some verb tenses as we go along. The first phrasal verb you might encounter is to snatch at. This means to grab or grasp at someone or something. An example of this. The officer snatched at the suspect, but the suspect managed to slip away and run down the street, right? So maybe the officer got a slight grab or hold, but it was short lived, right? And the person was able to kind of get loose and run away. That's an example of the simple past tense. So we're talking about a completed action there. A second way we can use the phrasal verb snatch at means to attempt to obtain, achieve, or make use of something. An example of this. You must snatch at this opportunity to join the project because you don't know when you'll get another chance like this. In this sentence, we're using the modal must to talk about necessity or obligation. So here, someone is trying to be rather forceful with their words, telling you, you have to do this. This project might really advance your career, do something positive, open some other doors for you. And they're trying to kind of convince you of that. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to snatch away. This means to take something or someone away suddenly. And oftentimes, there's an understanding that force is being used. An example of this. The child was snatched away from her babysitter while they were in the park. Okay, so here, was snatched away is an example of the passive voice. So we don't know who is responsible for doing the action. We might be using that because we're not sure who the suspect is. We can't name the person. But it's passive voice in the past tense. Now let's look at some more phrasal verbs. The next one you might encounter is to snatch from. This means to seize or grab hold of someone or something very suddenly. And again, that idea is you're taking it away. An example of this: he snatched the paper from my hands. So I was holding it, right? It was seized or it was grabbed. That's another simple past tense sentence. That one is in the active voice. A second way to use snatch from means to cause someone or something to lose control or possession suddenly, or to lose possession rather unexpectedly. An example of this: are they going to snatch control of Parliament from the ruling party? Here's an example of the simple future using be going to, right? So this could apply to a number of different countries, but kind of that idea of one party maybe causing another to lose control or their sort of possession and control of the agenda and how governing and how laws are being made within the country. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to snatch out of. Again, we're back to that meaning of seizing or grabbing hold of someone or something suddenly with that purpose of taking it away. An example of this: the children snatched cookies out of the cookie jar. Okay? So, again, kind of the idea here is they probably didn't have permission, right? Otherwise, we might just use the verb they took cookies out of the cookie jar. But there's sort of this idea. Um, Maybe they're trying to do it secretly, trying to do it without being noticed. That's another simple past tense sentence. The last phrasal verb we'll discuss today is to snatch up. This is used many times when someone is buying or purchasing or maybe even acquiring something before others can. Sometimes it's used to talk about someone buying a large quantity of a certain item. So, an example of this: we're going to snatch up as many copies as we can. I've heard teachers talk about this in relation to books, especially at used book sales or places where it's going to be discounted. They want to try and get as many copies for their students as possible, right? Especially when things are a good deal, you might encounter that phrasal verb being used. Now, let's spend a moment looking at some words that are related to our verb snatch. And the first word we're going to start with today is just the noun form of this word. So the noun snatch has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation as our verb. When we use the noun snatch, it can have a number of different meanings. We'll talk about four of them today. The first is just that action of snatching or quickly grabbing, seizing something. An example of this: the thief pulled a quick snatch in the parking lot of the store. Right? Really just another way of saying the thief stole something from another person. A second way to use this noun is to talk about a short spell of doing something. So, doing something for a very short bit of time, a short period of time. An example of this: the new parents have had brief snatches of sleep during the last month. If you've ever had a small child, you might remember that or had that sort of similar experience of just short spells of sleep, right? You're not getting 8 consecutive hours when you have a baby. A third way to use the noun snatch is to talk about a fragment or a short piece of a song or someone's words, maybe some talking. An example of that: I only heard snatches of the conversation Can you tell me what she was sharing? Right. So one here is saying, I heard a little bit, but I didn't hear everything, or I didn't hear the things maybe in the right order. Can you fill me in? A fourth way to use snatch is very specific to the sport of weightlifting. And so there are different kind of movements that occur within weightlifting, and one is sort of this rapid raising of the weight from the floor above one's head in sort of one continuous movement. So, an example of this, they've been competing in the snatch for over 10 years, right? So, if you heard something connected to that, again, more of a focus on sport versus the idea of stealing or taking something. One last word for us today, it's the adjective snatchable. Again, remember that suffix able generally forms adjectives, and our definition is going to kind of relate back to that base verb. So, capable of being snatched or able to be. Okay. An example of this, the information you share on the app could easily be snatchable. Right? So something that always gives me fear thinking about how much data can be grabbed um, now in 2024. So again, a special thank you to Bob for suggesting this verb. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.